But moving on, we are going to switch over to the other park, Universal, because there have been a ton of leadership changes over at Universal. So let's dive into this one. Following the news of Universal Parks and Resorts Chairman Tom Williams' retirement, the president of Universal Orlando Resort decided to announce that he will be joining the club as well. In just a few weeks, current president and COO will begin his retirement and make way for Karen Irwin to step into his shoes. Karen is the current president of Universal Studios Hollywood. This is what retiring chairman Tom Williams had to say. Bill is a legend in our industry and here at Universal. His passion for our business, for our team members, and for excellence has inspired all of us. Orlando team members know Bill has a constant presence in our parks, and I will always remember my frequent walks through the parks with Bill as we reviewed our business and, more importantly, built our friendship. Bill Davis was often known for his hands-on approach in the operations of the parks. With his retirement coming up soon, how does this affect your outlook on the future of the resort?
You know what?
You know what's funny?
You know what's funny?
I'll say it for you.
I thank you very much.
Yeah.
But no, so it's weird, and I obviously the viewers or whoever is listening to this don't really know my history with the Universal Parks in Orlando, but growing up in Central Florida, a really good friend of mine, her father was a manager at one of the restaurants in Universal Orlando. And so she would have surpluses of tickets, and we would go all the time just because it was so easy. It was quick. It was free, whatever. And so this girl, this friend of mine, who I'm still very close with to this day, she is actually currently a team member at the Universal Parks, and she's been there for like a decade. And we spoke prior to this podcast, of course, recording, but you had mentioned some things that you personally remembered of Bill Davis. And it's interesting that you say that because when you said that, it actually sparked some memories within myself about this man and I guess how personal he was with the team members and things similar. And it's interesting because this girl, this friend of mine, who remains unnamed, she just always had such pleasant things to say, and everyone had that kind of same rapport with him. And so, I don't know, it's weird, I guess, to think about it all changing now with him leaving, but I can't imagine, I don't know, I'd like to think it'll be a similar experience, whoever takes his role. It's hard for me, I don't really know, I can't really speak. It's sad, but it's another corporate position that I feel like to a consumer or a park goer, whichever you'd like to identify us as, I don't know how much we'll notice that difference personally. But I could be so wrong as well.
Yeah, well, I actually do remember Bill Davis quite well. I mean, I worked at Universal for a handful of years as just like a normal team member, working in the food industry. But then also I worked in entertainment for a little while. I was a scare actor for a bit. And what's funny is, I remember him less from like entertainment. I never really encountered him in the entertainment side. But as like the bottom of the food chain type of employee, like you'd think it would be the other way around. But as the bottom of the food chain employee, like, I actually had quite a few encounters with him where, he was famous for his Saturday walks through the parks. Every Saturday morning, as the park was opening, he would walk through the parks and make sure that everything was good, make sure that the team members were having a great morning. There were stories of him, checking, like just randomly walking into like the break spaces of the different rides or the different restaurants and talking to the employees and the team members and asking like, hey, what can I do for you today? And like, just randomly showing up and bringing donuts to people. Like, that's just the type of guy that he was. He was like a genuinely nice person, but he just loved the parks so much. Like, you could tell that it wasn't just a job for him, that he genuinely cared. And he wrote this beautiful goodbye letter to the team members. And in that letter, he talked about how blessed he was to be able to see his grandchildren grow up at the parks and see just how much, like, the team members had a role in the way that they got brought up and all that. It was a very beautiful letter and all that. But yeah, like, I remember seeing him genuinely care about, like, the lowest of the food chain type employees.
Like everyone.
Yeah. Everyone. And that's just something that is very rare for, like, a executive type person to do. The fact that he was, like, hands-on and actually in the parks, and, like, he would always eat lunch at City Walk, and he would always talk to guests, and he would always talk to employees. He was just, like, an amazing leader. And he was always present for big events in the parks. Whenever a new ride opened, like, you know, most recently, he was all over social media because when Velocicoaster opened, he was there opening day, and there was, like, the big meme going around on social media that Universal was building a churro stand, you know, because Universal doesn't like, you know, Disney likes to announce their projects like 10 years in advance. Like, hey, we're going to build this thing 10 years from now. But Universal likes to build it and then announce it right before it opens. So they were building the Velocicoaster. Everyone saw the Velocicoaster, and Universal hadn't announced anything. So the meme became, oh, they're just building another churro stand. You know, what is this? Oh, you know, nothing. Look away. It's just another churro stand. Yeah. So it was like a running joke in the community. And so opening day of the Velocicoaster, Bill Davis was there literally eating a churro as the thing opened. And then for all the guests there at the park that day got a free churro to celebrate
the opening
Velocicoaster. Yeah, it was great. And that's just the type of guy that he was. Like, he was very involved in the parks and knew everything and cared enough to be present and to have a face for the parks. And he's just going to have some really big shoes to fill. So I wanted to share just a little bit about him on that. But this news also talks a lot about his replacement, Karen Irwin. Personally, I don't know too much about her. She is basically the same position that he has, but over at Hollywood's park. So she definitely has experience. Even though the park in Hollywood is a lot smaller, a lot more contained.
And it's a single park.
It's a single park, where this is a whole resort that has hotels and is currently building a third park.
Fourth.
Fourth.
If you count the water park.
If you count the water park.
Volcano Bay.
A third normal park, a fourth park total.
Yeah.
Well, in that case, Disney has 6 parks.
I just want to be specific, because that's how they advertise
it.
You know.
That is how they advertise it. To be fair. So this is still going to be a big step up for her. I personally, I don't know how her relationship is with the team members or the just the teams over at Hollywood. So I haven't heard a lot. All I know is she has some big shoes to fill. And I hope for the best with her. And to your point, I actually think that if the transition isn't 100% smooth, I actually feel like the guest will see quite a bit of a difference at the parks, because Bill Davis was just such a great leader. Not only was he like a great morale booster to the employees there, which goes a long way, but he was also very hands-on with the development of the parks. Like, because of him that that Hogsmeade got built. It was because of him that Diagon Alley got built. And Hogsmeade alone was such a big pivotal role, played such a big pivotal role in the history of Universal. Yeah. Like, Universal was like broke. They didn't have the money to compete with Disney. and they built Harry Potter. It was such a success. It turned around the attendance. Like attendance was plummeting. They built Harry Potter, and ever since they opened Hogsmeade in 2011, every single year attendance has gotten bigger and bigger and bigger, to the point now where they just opened up Universal Beijing, which never would have happened without Harry Potter. You know, they built Diagon Alley, which never would have happened without the original Harry Potter. The Hogsmeade land has been built, was it 4 times now throughout the world? Just an amazing feat, and it was because of Bill Davis's leadership. He was there when J.K. Rowling came knocking at the gate. Literally, she had a meeting at Disney, didn't like the way that it went with Disney, and so she drove down the street, knocked on the door, and said, "Let me meet with your leadership." And Bill Davis had a meeting with her that day, and it was because of that meeting that Harry Potter got built.
Yeah.
So it was because of his leadership. And he was there for the opening of Volcano Bay, which was another huge step for Universal. So many of the resorts. Universal Orlando has seen so much expansion under him, and like, I know that it's just one resort, but Universal Orlando Resort is the mothership for the entire global Universal Parks brand. Universal Orlando Resort is what Disneyland is for Disney. You know, like, everything is based in California for Disney. Right now, everything is based in Orlando for Universal. And Bill Davis has had such a huge role in that. And I really wish the best luck for Karen Irwin. I will definitely be rooting for her, and paying close attention to the things that happen. I am very excited for the leadership. Bill Davis's retirement is well earned, well deserved. He spent over 15 years at the company. Great leader. But one of the things that I wanted to bring up with this wasn't just about Bill Davis, wasn't just about Karen Irwin, but a little bit more of just how much executive leadership change is coming to Universal, because I don't know if it's just a coincidence or like how this played out, but in the last podcast that we did, we talked about Tom Williams stepping down, who he was the Universal Parks and Resorts chairman over all of the resorts worldwide. And so he retires, and then now this next podcast we're talking about Bill Davis, like the next guy saying he's out too. I don't know if that's just a coincidence, but because so many people are leaving, there's now like a power vacuum, so people are getting moved up. So we have Karen Irwin coming over. There's another person filling her role, obviously. But there was an article that, let me see if I can just bring it up real quick. This is great podcast planning here. But there was an article talking about how they are creating a role called the President of the Pacific Rim Universal Parks and Resorts, where I believe this guy is named Tom Merman. Is he a merman? Tom Merman?
How does it spell?
Mehrmann. Merman.
Yeah, I guess so.
Tom Merman. Yeah. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. I don't know. Merman. Right. That's probably actually how it's.
I don't know.
Merman.
Yeah.
The current president of Universal Beijing Resort. So they had a president for just that specific resort. They're actually bumping him up to a newly created role of president of the Pacific Rim Universal Parks and Resorts. It's kind of like a mouthful of a title. It reminds me of Pacific Rim, the movie. You know, all I can think of is big battling robots. But yeah, it's very strange that there's so much power shakeup at the parks. I mean,
well, yes, that almost feels like that's not funny. That feels like consolidation.
It's hilarious.
Is it not? Because they're essentially merging all of these roles into a single role.
Well, yeah. So
is that what is happening? Correct.
So I'm actually not too sure about that because
Yeah.
I don't know if this is a so it's saying it's a newly created role. I don't know if it's consolidating roles or if it's a new role above. Like I don't know if
to all of those existing roles. Yeah.
yeah, like I don't know if there's going to be a president. I would assume so that there's going to be a president at each park.
At the park level.
You know,
yeah.
like president of Universal Beijing, president of Universal Singapore, you know, president of Universal Japan.
Yeah.
And then the person over them is going to be president of Pacific Rim Universal Parks. Like I would assume that's how that works, but I'm actually not too sure. Yeah, it's very strange that they're changing up leadership so much right now at Universal. I'm hoping, like I'm choosing to be optimistic. I'm hoping that it's because the parks have been doing so well that they are able to create more roles, more positions, and expand the parks. I'm hoping that this is because of an expansion of the parks. You know, we're expanding here in Orlando. They're expanding with Beijing. Universal Japan is the world's busiest theme park that is not a Disney resort.
Yeah.
So Universal is just like seeing so much growth right now. So I'm hoping that it's because of that. So I'm hoping that there are going to be some great things coming to the parks. But it is a little concerning because it's, you know, I have loved the way, for the most part, there's been decisions that have been made that I haven't been a big fan of.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I've been a big fan of the way that the Universal parks have been
like
led and managed over the last 10 years or so. And it does make me a little nervous hoping that direction doesn't change too much.
Are they going to pull a Disney?
Are they going to pull a Disney? Are they going to start changing everything?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. I don't know, but like, does that concern you at all?
You know what? That's actually, until you said that really wasn't a thought in my head. But at the same time, it is interesting because, like you said, there is a lot of growth happening at the Universal parks around the world, and I don't know, but there's also a lot of retirements happening on at least the Central Florida level, as far as you said, Tom Williams, and then Bill Davis.
Davis, yeah.
And that's just them coming to the end of their careers. I'd like to think, I'm assuming willingly. So as far as on the global scale, though, that is very interesting. Maybe it's their way, like by creating this role, it's their way of uniting all of these international forces, I guess, to head in a similar direction, if they're not already doing that. But I don't know. I'd like to think it is to just continue to maintain such an exciting brand that people love so much, that I also really enjoy.
Yeah.
I've only experienced the North American Universal parks. I've not been
I've only experienced the Orlando
parks.
Right
now. And but I don't know. I'd like to think it's just their way of continuing it all under the same brand and keep it uniform.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know.
You know, yeah, for sure. And I think the best thing to do right now is to stay hopeful. You know, like the people that they're promoting, like we talked about this a little bit in our last podcast, the people that they're promoting to take up these roles seem very qualified and very experienced and have had a lot of history with the Universal parks. It's not like they're just experienced, but their experience with Universal specifically, and specifically in this industry as well. So I'm choosing to be very optimistic, but the question is for you guys, what do you think about this news, all the leadership changes? Are you excited for the future? Does this make you nervous for the future? Let us know down below what you think about the retirement of this legend of Bill Davis. Just let us know what you guys think. And of course, I just want to say thank you to Bill Davis for the 15 plus years that you gave the Universal Parks. You have made a huge impact in so many people's lives, and we wish you the best retirement. Of course,